Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter, and this time on the podcast, I speak again with Dr. Carrie Murphy. Carrie and I went to the middle of nowhere and received some powerful teachings and meditated together for 1,000 years, and I'm exaggerating, but not that much. We came back a little different, and this podcast episode was recorded in the beautiful aftermath of that experience. We're out on the edge together, and as usual, we have some stuff to say. We talk about the experience of coming into the present moment, what it's like being consciousness in form, and I lay out the framework of the three teachings and how they relate temporally, meaning how the three body teachings are about the past, how the Honeycomb Matrix is about the present, and how the golden frequency teaching is about the future. What happens when we free ourselves from the past, arrive into the spacious present moment, and plant seeds for a new future? We have opinions. We also bring in evolution through joy, describe how to create a garden planet, be nice to our parts, and end with profanity. You know, a normal Carrie and Robin episode. And good news for you lucky folks, Carrie, who you might recall is a teacher, a coach, and doctor of Chinese medicine, now offers one-on-one individual and group coaching over Zoom. In these sessions, she utilizes the ancient wisdom traditions of Chinese medicine and Tibetan Buddhism and helps you solve modern problems at work and at home. Her Substack is called Hello, You're Not Broken, because you aren't, and she can really help you see that. Her free weekly meditation series, Zoom Zen, is Fridays at 9 a.m. Central. To work with Carrie in any capacity, find her through her website at carriemurphylac.com. Now, please enjoy this conversation with my friend and spiritual colleague, Dr. Carrie Murphy.
Do you want me to tell the joke?
You should tell the joke. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay. I almost said knock knock. It's not like that. Okay. Robin, what do you get when you cross integral theory, adult developmental psychology with ayahuasca?
What do you get, Carrie?
Waking up, showing up, growing up, and throwing up.
Yeah. And then there's cleaning up.
The thing about ayahuasca is like you throw up and then into hopefully, a toilet, usually a bucket. And then you like read the tea leaves because you're like, oh my God, what does it mean? It's the cosmos.
Right.
So
that tracks for the moment, like there's been a lot of visceral body experience of, what I would call purification. Not that I'm throwing up. I don't often purge that way, but it's like these really intense sensations running through the body as things are processing through very quickly. And that's been a really interesting thing. I've been trying to figure out from this place of spaciousness and openness that it's a little bit hard to navigate in. I've been trying to figure out like what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, what the podcast is, what wants to come through, and noticing the things that I gravitate back to over and over again, and noticing that there is still this Venn diagram of like the goddess, the unification of these seemingly polarized archetypes in the body, and Buddhism and development is in there for sure. And experiencer world, like that whole world. And it seems like that Venn diagram still exists. So I've been trying to feel into how that wants to be expressed. And that joke and that title is pretty much like on point for all of that, I guess I'll just say to maybe give us a seeding point, because this feels alive too. There's this today, I think today literally is the release of the Disclosure Day movie, which is a really big deal in the experiencer community. Apparently they use the word experiencer in the movie. And so people are having lots of feelings about that, understandably. And I am too. I'm somebody who tends to like, once the culture catches up to whatever vibe I've been on, I just want to like put it down and walk away from it. And be like, I don't know, like as soon as it catches on or becomes its own egregore, which it will, and it is, I just don't want anything to do with it typically. And then the thing that has happened in the community recently with the experiencer group and Jay and Kelly Chase going through all of that and us all processing that, part of me has just really wanted to put down the experiencer identity. That was my reaction to that, of just like, I don't want anything to do with any of this. And I've been in a real question about that. Like, what does this word even mean? Where are we going? What's happening with it? Has it been so co-opted by the overculture and the government and the narratives around that and the narratives around disclosure? And there's like, I really love a good bro UFO podcast, but there are a lot of them. And there's less of the conversations that I'm, deeply interested in hearing, which are more like, how does this push us out of the concrete world into more the subtle and sacred interior, and becomes a developmental driver and a spiritual path, so that's where I am realizing that I'm really solidly landing. So all of that has been alive in me, and all of that has been a big question as to if I, how am I going to navigate all this going forward? And I told you part of this story, but I just got done driving across the country, which is great for me because I'm forced to just sit with myself for hours, and I love a road trip. And the second day I got in my truck and I turned on my Spotify just to turn on music or whatever. And the song that came up was the Carpenters singing, calling occupants of interplanetary craft, which is like a great song, but I had never heard it before. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like a 1977 CE5 instruction, which is just wild. It's amazing. And so I was listening to that song, and I was overcome with this. It was like a limiter had been taken off of my vision around this whole topic that had been so heavily influenced by the heaviness of of official disclosure, of the secret government programs, of looking through that lens. We have to protect our airspace, and there's like, they're in our oceans and all this stuff, and like hearing that song and driving down the road, it felt like this limiter came off, and I just had this huge experience of awe. It's like, there are beings that we can interact with, and many of us have, and I have. And it was this flood of love and excitement and curiosity, and just like, holy fucking shit, like this is happening in our lifetime right now. And seeing it through that lens, it's like the lens just shifted 30 degrees or something, and I could see it for how it used to feel for me, or how it has felt in other ways. And then I could see the real deep heaviness of what's been overlaid on top of it, with like really interwoven with the polycrisis and the meta crisis. It's like all of this stuff is going on, and aliens are coming, and they're probably gonna, whatever, like all of that together just got puffed away like a cloud. And then I felt this real joy and excitement of the bizarre weirdness of having a direct experience with beings that are not human. And that felt like it actually, to be honest, felt a little bit like a telepathic, or like some sort of communication, or some sort of like nudge from those beings to kind of remember the excitement of this moment. And so then the rest of the trip, I listened to like experiencer podcasts the rest of my journey. And I got really excited about it and remembered all the complexity and how weird it is, and weird in the best way, and how it breaks reality over and over again. And now I'm in a totally different space with it. So I still think all those things. I still think it breaks reality and pushes our development. And I still think it's spiritual and consciousness in nature, in addition to the concrete nuts and bolts kind of things. But I'm now experiencing, like, there was an opening into the awe of communication with non-human intelligence, plus the sort of beauty of the planet that I was driving through. just so green, and the sky was so blue, and the clouds were so low and white. And I was sort of driving through this heaven. I don't know. It was a whole thing. So that's, and I've been exploring a lot more evolution through joy. And so this all feels intermingled for me.
I was really struck just in the sheer metaphor of the sacred interior being the beings, that's like there's all these bro podcasts about the technology and the ships. And like, with all due respect, who gives a shit what kind of car they're driving? That is some beings. I mean, my heavenly days, like, both are important, fine, whatever. I don't care. I'm interested in communion. You walk past a house with a cat sitting on a couch and you're like, hey, hi. There's that desire to recognize consciousness where you see it, to recognize a fellow being where you see one, you know, move a plant into the rain. All the ways that we have this desire to be with other beings and to know them. And when you said the sacred interior, I was like, yeah, who's in there? That's the sacred interior of the patriarchal obsession with the technology. And the technology might be great for all I know. It might be like we don't need oil anymore and everybody has health care. I don't know what the technology is. I've been really holding out for the like Star Trek scanner over the body kind of stuff for a while. And I also think that we're at a moment, at least on some levels of our culture, where if you're not working with spirituality at all, you're just ignoring the highest part of your consciousness that we have access to as human beings. And so I also think we've had a long divide between, and I'm experiencing it right now as an acupuncturist, this article about the interstitium. A lot of people are like, oh, they discovered it. We found it. We found the dry, dead, fleshy pathway. It's like the interstitium. It doesn't exist in dead tissue, which is why it was only discovered. I'm making air quotes. Discovered 4 years ago. 4 years ago, because you can only watch the interstitium in living tissue. And so when tissue is dissected, you won't find the interstitium. It's something a little subtler, but it has to do with the way that energy and fluids flow across living tissue in an interconnective, interpenetrative, and sort of coordinative way. I don't want to say a conscious way, but it is a web. It's a kind of a Wi-Fi situation, and it's also kind of like a river delta thing where as long as there is stuff to flow and there's living tissue, the things will flow and the tissue will live. And it's we have been for my whole life and for probably 1,000 years before or two, there's been this big break between the exterior and the interior, the male and the female, the living and the dead, science versus religion. And to the point of scientism and to the point of anti-scientific belief structures and religion and anti-religious belief structures and science, to the point where neither are either. Like they're so far opposite that we might be coming to a point, and I see it all around me and my algorithm, of people kind of recognizing that mind and consciousness are not localized and generated by brain. They might be relational, but it's not a one-to-one generation. It's not this causes that. There may be a field of consciousness that causes brain. There might be brain that stabilizes a node of consciousness, but it's something a little bit bigger and a little bit weirder and a little bit more interpenetrative than this and that, which is sort of where we've been up until now. And finding even the idea that the male and female would be these two polarities that are opposite sides of a coin, and not like every bit of the melding metals of the coin and the concept of what the coin represents. I don't know if you know this, but pennies got canceled. We don't have pennies anymore. You don't get pennies for change, and the government doesn't make pennies anymore. Like pennies are done. And so now what is it? I found a penny on the floor and I was like, what is it? What is the thing now? Is it a two-sided coin? Was it ever? And that's kind of how I feel about, in my language, yin and yang. The big misunderstanding culturally is that yin and yang are these two polar opposites and that they stand opposed to one another. And it's a this or a that. And that is not at all what yin and yang means. I mean, there is no separating yin and yang. They can't exist without each other. They never even for a moment exist without each other. They're in a constant dance of creating, destroying, balancing, pulling away, coming together, merging into one, creating a third. It's not a this or that. And my image in my mind oftentimes is like a lava lamp. There's this sort of coming and going, merging and melding. It's very fluid. And so in all of these regions, like, of course, we have to bring in Buddhism or something, Taoism or something, Sufism, the Christian mysticism, Kabbalah, the mystical layer, psychedelics, the mystical layer of every experience, and the edge of science is like, but the container for this is a mystery. The end of every category is like, except for this thing that doesn't fit and kind of breaks the whole thing. The universe is expanding. The Big Bang happened. It's still happening. And the universe is still expanding. Into what? What does that even mean? Like, there's still this big mystery around anything. And the more we try to pin it down, we can find things like this is a cup, that is a pencil. And those things are true. But there's sort of this like ferny edge where things fray out into the mystery again. Things are much more evanescent than they appear. And to me, that's what comes up when you're talking about, this, what the hell do all these things have in common? Is reality, is our grappling with being a consciousness currently in a localized perspective, grappling with a field that may be aware that we are not separate from and couldn't be separate from. And yet we're having an experience of taking a local perspective to do whatever it is that we're doing here. I don't have the faintest idea. I've certainly heard a lot of compelling theories, but what is this place? What are we doing here? And back to the beginning, how shall I live? Given the fact that I'm the consciousness with two eyeballs observing a field, but only like 170 degrees of field or whatever my visual capacity is. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I don't have eyes in the top of my head. I'm taking a really limited perspective. I've only got one working ear. I have very limited sensory inputs to describe to me and to give my brain inputs to map the reality that I'm in. And I know that it's so partial. It's just so partial. And then what it comes to for me is, and it's a big one for me, is what is the thing that I have to respond to, or what is the thing that invites a response? And have I been asked to give a response? And my old default mode, similar to you, was I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to figure out the next 15 things, I'm going to correct for them, I'm going to, manifesting generator this and till the cows come home, and I'm gonna have all my stuff together. And as that fades, the amount that I don't have to do is kind of stunning, and I'm not sure I keep checking. Like, am I really not being asked to do any more than this? Is there really nothing else I need to be doing today? And there is a stunning amount of space.
I always wonder if there's like a collective frequency change happening, or if there's just like, this is a change that I'm going through. But I think about, Uranus and Gemini, and how, because perhaps like future casting is becoming harder and harder, and it feels to me like it's just easier to be in the present moment in some ways, that there's kind of a training for that. It's like, I have been going through this kind of transition for a while, and that I have found it challenging to soften into the dance, as as you were talking about, like the thing between, like the polarity between the two things, the internal and external, the all the things, all the ways, all the split that people have heard me talk about a lot, and finding parts or like energies that feel really uncomfortable, just being able to have the capacity to be in that spaciousness without having to figure this is how we've navigated, is you do this and then you do this and you figure this out and you have the plan and you do this. And the truth is that didn't actually create safety either, that there is only like impermanence and uncertainty, truly. And also, it does give a sense of control and safety. Having all the steps and all the ways and all the strategies for everything gives a sense of control and certainty. And then this space that I'm experiencing, and it sounds like you are as well, this spaciousness has felt to me very, there's a part of my like hypervigilance or activated nervous system that feels very uncomfortable in sort of the not knowing, and the sitting with the not knowing, and the being brought fully into the present moment, and present while in the present moment, like conscious and lucid while in the present moment, to realize that the part of my body that thinks there's a tiger in the room is incorrect. There's actually not a tiger in the room. Like, actually, I'm safe right now. My body is safe right now. So I was thinking about all of that, and then thinking about how, the body teachings that the beings showed me a long time ago, which was basically like, you cannot cross into a new paradigm unless all of the bodies are in relative close alignment. And by all of the bodies, that has been a teaching too. Like, what does that mean? What bodies are we talking about? But that teaching continues as all of, like, I think every teaching, if you really go into it and let it penetrate and stay with it and keep thinking about it and keep contemplating and keep listening and keep practicing, they just deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen and spiral and broaden and go to all these different places. And so the body teachings for me lately have been up a lot, because my understanding of them is that, and this goes into development and integral and shadow work and all of these things, that something happened in the past, maybe as a child, some trauma, and something got stuck or separated in that point. And like a part of us got sort of sheared away and fragmented and kind of trapped in that space and time. And so then when a similar situation, or something that is perceived as a similar situation, arises, we kind of collapse back to that moment in time where that unsafety still exists. And so part of all the bodies being close enough to cross the threshold is like helping that younger self find enough safety and like get whatever resources were needed in that moment to liberate them from that past moment in time, and then come into integration and wholeness, so that parts of us aren't stuck in the past. So it's like, I've been having this real interesting contemplation about, as we come more and more into the present moment, noticing that all the work that, we all have been doing for years around our parts and younger selves and all of that, and getting them liberated and brought into wholeness, so that we can be present. Because otherwise, we're living out past traumas and stories. We're operating through the lens of something that's not happening right now. And it's understandable to operate that way. Like there's no shame, no blame in any of it, because that's how that all works. That's just the nature of it. That's just how that works. So, but that experience of, that would be like the cleaning up, certainly, and the growing up in some ways of liberating all of those past selves from where they're stuck in time and then coming into the present moment. And then there's something about, and then the present moment is full of like the honeycomb matrix, where you look and how you look, and everything is super trippy lately. And but powerful, like incredibly powerful, to be able to focus in and absorb into presence in this moment. And then something about the future having to do with like what the beings called the golden frequency, which is from that field of consciousness that you're talking about, being able to like garden our lives so that we get a different outcome in the future. So I'm having this real like temporal strangeness that feels really great and exciting, and doesn't take me too far away from, I'm remembering in the past when somebody would just be like, just be present, Robin. Like, look how nice it is here. And I'd be like, you can fuck right off. Like this, I do not, there's a capacity building for presence, I think. I know. And in my framework for things, like the body is the past self arriving into the present moment. And so when the body has, body is like such a portal for me right now of, so the body is the past self arising into the present moment. So if we come into a moment and notice that the body is, like there's something in my stomach churning, or my throat feels tight, or, there's some sort of message in the body that is signaling discomfort, and there's, not anything happening in the present that is actually dangerous, then that's a sign and an indication that there's a younger self who is signaling that this feels like an unsafety that felt like this unsafe thing before. And then the act of, pausing and listening and turning towards that with love and helping, through all the ways that we do, but through basically attunement, awareness, like saying, yes, of course, that makes sense, that feeling is there. That makes sense. I hear you. You're not alone anymore. And then what do you need? And being able to meet the need of a previous part, or a part that's stuck in a different present, and helping bring safety to that, and enough safety to have that part come into wholeness and liberation in this present moment, is how we come into presence. It's like freeing ourselves from a past that no longer exists. It helps the body come into the present, and the body in the present, to me, feels like a completely regulated nervous system, and no shade to dysregulation. But dysregulation should, happens when there's danger. And if I'm sitting alone in a room meditating, or speaking with a really good friend, and there's not a tiger in the room, then anything that's dysregulation is from the past, is how I've been seeing it. And so there's like training to come into the present moment and capacity building for the present moment.
And then that is what creates our future that we're having trouble future casting, because if we're not collapsing the present into a repeat of the past, and then we collapse that into a future which is predictable based on the past, if we stop doing that and we allow all these selves to come into the room with us and to have their needs met and to have their voices heard, then the next moment is kind of not known, because we're not just blindly continuing to create a next moment that's based unconsciously on the past. One time, three little kids walked into a room I was in, and they didn't know I was in there. And so when they weren't walking in a row, the first one stopped, surprised that I was in the room. And then the second one ran into him, and the third one ran into him. And then they all fell down. It's like such a great, that's my image sometimes of when something comes up for me and like a response comes up. It's like a pile up of little kids, like stop and fall over. And then, it's like, okay, kids, oh, which ones are you? And which ages are you? And what do you need? And is there a tiger, or was there a tiger? Was it a dream? What do you need? And if we respond from the place of, oh, it's the tiger all over again, then we create a future that looks just like what we've always known. And if we don't, I mean, it makes sense to me that we would be dealing with a lot of like question marks about what the future moments will be, because we're not, and I don't mean this in a like super Buddhist way of like karma and projecting out into the world. I mean it in like quite a firm way. Like if somebody says something to me and I don't take it as an insult, I don't think that they're saying the mean thing to me that someone said in the past, I will respond differently, and the next moment will be different. It will be different. And I don't mean it in a particularly esoteric way, just very specifically. But to bring in something really esoteric, I've been thinking a lot about Dolores Cannon lately, and with what you were saying, and Uranus and Gemini, her talk about the split, of a second Earth splitting off. I don't know what's going on with that or where we are with it, but I feel very vividly that I'm living in a different reality completely sometimes than the people around me. And it feels best for me when I'm with somebody who's in a similar reality, so that we can sort of agree and be together and rest. But I deal with people every day and interact with people every day who they and I are in a conversation, but it's a completely different conversation that they're in than that I'm in. Or they have a completely different president than I have, or they have a completely different, that I'm finding less and less agreement on the present moment, and watching reality fracture, that there isn't really this consensus reality of, I call it Walter Cronkite, that everybody would watch the same two or three news shows at 6 p.m. and come away with more or less the same information, more or less the same stories about what was going on in the world and how we feel about them and how we stand in the USA and who we are in the situation. And it just doesn't feel like that at all anymore.
Mhm.
And that really points to, is something out there changing, or is something in here changing? Or both, because what's in here is not other than what's out there. I'm not other than the field. I'm not other than whatever it is that makes up Gemini, which is stars and ideas and chattiness. um, yeah, that feeling of, am I creating my world? Is this world a mirror? Well, it is to me. Is it a mirror out there? I don't know. But I know that if I had a patient last week who, and this happens sometimes, got really offended when I was asking her questions about her health, because she just took the questions to have a meaning of, is that really true? Do you really mean that? Are you really saying that's a problem? She took the tell me more about that, or did you say that started on Tuesday, to be some kind of attack for reasons. I'm sure she has really strong reasons for feeling, when she's being questioned, that her reality is being questioned or her veracity is being questioned. And I was asking because I want to give her the right acupuncture treatment and give her the right herbs. And the more I understand about her case, the more I'm able to do that, you know. But when I come up against someone who's really super defensive. I understand this is something from their past, but they don't necessarily understand it's from their past. They're finding it something in their present. Oh, a rude acupuncturist who doesn't believe me about my butt. I'm like, I do believe you. I do believe you. I actually do believe you. And even if I thought you were lying, I would be interested in what you were lying about. Even if I thought, what you're saying isn't 100%, I'm not sure about it, I would be treating you based on what you were saying and what you were bringing. And so there's kind of and I'm not saying like she's dumb and I'm amazing. I'm saying that her experience in the room with me of being challenged was coming more from her past than it was coming from me. And then the next patient was like, thank you for listening so closely. I really appreciate how much attention you're paying to this. So am I rude and do I have a terrible bedside manner? Or am I listening and is it coming from me? What I know what I'm intending. I don't know what's coming through and I don't know what's going in. But there is this two-sided participation. I was thinking too, I mean, we always joke that I have more time than everyone else. I seem to have like 80 hours in a day. Do I have some kind of magical power? Or is it when you rest into the present for even a moment, you have a sense of eternity? There's a timeless, boundless eternity. So am I sitting there for a minute being like, Jesus Christ, this night goes on forever? Am I feeling like I have 15 hours because I'm just having a moment without 1,000 paper tigers flooding the room?
Yeah. That's so good. I did make a couple notes this time because I'm not holding on to things really well. But one of the things, talking about relating to other people who seem to be and certainly in these conversations and discussions, like are in different realities. Like it's literally a different reality. And but finding it hard to relate in some ways. And I'm finding that a practice as well, and I love that I was kind of hoping this might happen, but body teaching 2, we talked about like body teaching 1, but body teaching 2 is if it's true for me, it's true for everybody else. Like if it is true that the reason that I have, an activated nervous system in this moment when there actually is no danger and I don't have somebody, like there's a person in front of me trying to help me, but it's arriving to me as somebody being like mean and rude. And why are they questioning me like this? And why is this attack happening? But actually that's not the case, but I'm perceiving it that way because, like you said, because of reasons. Like there's a good like certainly there are reasons that happened. And that reason is that something in the past that feels similar to this was very unsafe at that time. And so there's this past self sort of stuck in that trauma and stuck in that context. And until that is sort of gone back and welcomed in and, brought in with love and care and dissolved into the wholeness of us, that still stands as a reality. And so if that's true for me, that's true for everybody. And what that has helped me practice, and I'm having not insanely hard challenges, but I am noticing like some challenge with it. But the practice is then deeply understanding that, which brings compassion and is like, oh, I'm talking to somebody who's defensive because they're scared, or who's, we are talking to younger selves. That's what that made me think of, is the second of 3 parts of the body teaching, which is if it's true for me and I've developed compassion and love for the parts of myself that get scared because they're kids, for myself, then the natural response is compassion for other people, because it is unconscious. Like the body is the past, the body is the inner child, the body is the unconscious, the body is the stuff that it is every seed we've ever planted throughout every lifetime arriving into the present moment. And that includes like our mind and the way we think about things and the way we're feeling and our psyche and the way we see the world and actually the world that we're seeing and all of these things is all arising from the past into the present. And so the more that we can integrate the past and like heal the past, and it becomes generational, it becomes ancestral, becomes like collective and cultural and all of these things, then it gives us capacity to come into the present. And before that, we're just operating from the past. And then that makes me think about what you said about that spaciousness that you spoke to. It's like, well, then I don't know what the future is going to be because I'm not just recreating the past unconsciously over and over again. And so, what is the future going to be? It's going to be what we choose. Like, there's choice becomes possible when all of the bodies are close enough in alignment so that we can cross into a new paradigm. And there's like lucidity in that moment and choice to take an action that will then create the future. And by the way, I was not saying that you were not compassionate to that person in that situation.
I wasn't hearing that.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that at all. But I'm noticing it in me when I'm just, because there are some things that become like I feel very clear about some things. And sometimes when I'm interacting with someone, I'm like, do you want to stop everything right now and just deal with your, like, bring in your inner child who's hurting? But if there's not that common language, that's not possible,
I
But
will
anyway.
say for that patient, I slowed way down in my speech and said, I'm asking you this because I want to help. And when I ask you questions, it helps me help you. And she said, well, that needs to be explained. And I said, I'm explaining it right now. We're stopping so that it's clear and taking the time to make it clear. And of course, there's an irritated part of me that's like, do I really have to explain how this works? Like, you come in and tell me what's going on, I figure out what it means, and I give a treatment based on it. But yeah, because a lot of patients they've just never thought about it before. A lot of people get on the table and they're like, oh, do the same points on everybody? And I'm like, I just spent an hour asking you about your case. It's not because I'm curious about your case. It's because so I can choose these points. But it's sort of in a black box for a lot of people. They just don't see the process. And so for me, I've been doing it for 27 years, and I'm like, can everybody please get with the program? That's not super helpful. That's just like a little thought form of mine. But when you're talking through it, it's making me feel like I'm so willing to do it at work, actually. Even if I have an inner eye roll about it, I'm so willing to do it at work. But I find that in my closest relationships, where of course it's the most important, I want to be like, could there be less of the unconscious? But at the same time, I remember a time when I said to my husband, like very early on in our relationship, I have some pain around this issue. It's kind of a sore spot. So when you say X, it makes me feel Y. And he was like, well, it's not really fair for you to bring in all that baggage from your past. And I was like, well, shit, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I'm 26 years old. Like, I think I'm gonna, I'm not fully unpacked here. And so that relational work that we have to do with one another when we're in our closest relationships. And I think about refuge, like where are the places that I go for refuge where I can relax and rest and assume that I will be held in a way where I'm not saying the mean thing. That I'm asking a question, like where I knew that you weren't saying to me that I wasn't being compassionate with that patient. I could hear where someone could think that, but
Mhm.
you and I have the space where I would not expect that you were saying that to me. And you would have to explicitly say, Carrie, you need to work on compassion, like you're fucking it up. And I'd be like, oh my God, I must really be fucking it up. But it's not, I'm not quick to jump on that. That's, with you. And in really certain relationships, we want to build that sense of safety where there is we're going to assume that I'm not attacking you. I'm going to assume that you're not attacking me. And that if I'm feeling attacked, I might be like, oh, I have something coming from my past. I don't think Robin is attacking me. I don't think my husband hates me. So if I'm feeling something about it, like which three kids just walked into the room and knocked each other over, like who needs what? how are we doing? And the body teaching of if it's true for me, it's true for everyone has such obvious, like, ooh, we can have pitfalls there, but like such obvious truth and relevance. Like I know when I felt that way, and I have space for you to feel that way. That we're in a sometimes we fall into a prison of the past. We might have spent our whole lives in the prison of the past, just seeing everything per the past. And I've been wondering lately, like with certain things, are people even aware that what they're talking about or what they're experiencing is subjective? You know, if somebody walks into a room and they're like, ugh, this paint color is hideous, are they aware? Well, someone likes it. You know, it's not, that's actually just a matter of opinion. That's not a matter of fact. It may be a fact that it's green, but is it a fact that it's hideous? Or are you aware that you're just saying your perspective on something? You know, and what of what we're perceiving isn't our perspective on something to expand it out. You
Yeah.
get to some edges of like, well, that's a tree though, right? There are trees. Okay, you know, and then you're like, oh shoot, is that a hedge? Or is it a tree? You know, we always get to that like edge of the category because it's constructed
Mhm.
and real. There are trees. I think there are trees.
I think this is where, the little, like this much that I know about developmental theory, which I really find so helpful. And I'm always learning about it. I don't know a ton about it, but this is, my perception is that, and my memory of life is that I was absolutely not aware that I was just expressing a perspective and that there was not thinking about my thinking and there was not enough space and awareness to be like, oh, wow, I feel like I might yell at this person right now, even though I know that they didn't mean to say it that way or whatever, but like, oh, I feel like this anger or this pain or confusion or fear arise in me. But this person that's not our relationship. It's not like that. So this must be something in me. That my understanding is that that's part of our development that comes later. But for a long time, like I'm so grateful for, and I always kind of have been, but I'm becoming more and more and more grateful for the sort of first third, maybe, of my life, if I'm really lucky or whatever, of having so much trauma and so much. I don't really, for a long time, I haven't really used the word drama, but a lot of drama and a lot of yelling and a lot of like, I've been in abusive relationships. I've in like addiction circles, they call it like pulling a geographic, like my life's falling apart here. I'm just going to up and move and go somewhere else. And then my life will be okay. Like the number of times that I did that, the victimization, like my own victimhood, like, why is this person such a horrible asshole? Not realizing that like we are in a context and our inner demons and our inner wounds are completely lock and key together. And we are just playing out a hell of our own creation, but completely unaware of that. It's not like nowhere in me, I think this is true, that there was not a place in me that I was like, I am co creating this situation. When it at its worst, I felt like the utter victim of the worst injustice that I can imagine, and certainly there was like perpetrator and victim playing out in that. I was like very much in like what do they call that? Like the triangle, the hero,
Trauma
savior,
triangle.
the trauma, yeah. The trauma triangle. Yeah. Like when I first saw the diagram of the trauma triangle, I was like, oh
Or the
my
drama
God.
triangle? Is
I
it
don't
the
know if it
drama?
was drama or
Trauma?
trauma.
Same,
It's
same.
it's something, it's like the hero, the victim, and the villain. Right. So
Yeah.
the hero saves the victim from the villain, but then you become the villain, and you play all of these roles. And actually, I don't get to be a hero unless you're a victim. And you don't get to be my savior unless I'm a victim. And I don't get to um, not feel victimized unless I get to play the villain. And so I remember that as being one of these really big like awakenings, like, oh my God, this is a context, like this is a thing that's happening. But I would say that at those times in my life, there was not anywhere near the ability to like pull back and think about my thinking and being like, well, this happened as a child and no wonder I feel this way. And this makes sense. It was just survival level drama, pain, you know, absolutely the unconsciousness, the unconscious arriving into the present moment and recreating hell over and over and over again. And in terms of creating a different future, the moments that helped me create a different future, I feel, were grace. You know, it was like the being showed up and pushed me down the stairs. But anybody who, you can go back and listen to my book for that story, but like, and broke my ankle when I was in the middle of a blackout drunk. And as I was falling, they said it was this or something worse. And there was so much compassion of just like, you have to stop or you're going to create, like, I'm pretty confident that I would have killed someone or hurt someone really badly driving drunk. You know, like it was a mess. My life was such hell. I was living in a hell realm. And so I'm really, for a while, there was so much shame around that. And then there was like the post traumatic growth that happens where I like spun it into power and into, you know, it was like a phoenix rising from the ashes story. And it was a heroic return and all of that. And so I had sort of gratitude around that. And now there's a different kind of gratitude because it brings such compassion. Because I can see that I was acting completely from trauma and from unconsciousness. And I actually can have compassion for everyone in that situation I mean, it's the definition of samsara. It's the definition of the illusion, the Maya, the matrix, you know, getting caught in the matrix and believing it's real. And then now we're talking about these very subtle, beautiful experiences of like coming into the present moment. And it's very quiet and it's very spacious. That happened because of reasons. That happened because of like a lot of, I mean, I keep thinking of grace because it is practice. It's a lot of practice, but like, what's the grace to receive the teachings that we've received that have helped us seed a new future? You know, so it's all this love and that has come in mixed with our own karmic arisings to be able to get us into a place of presence. And in my most spacious moments, I can see that that's true for everybody. Like we're all caught until we're not. And that even when I notice, like I wake up in a bad mood most days, which I don't think people, I don't know, like, I don't know if people would think that about me or not, but I wake up a little grumpy most mornings of just like, oh, okay, like what do I have to do? What do I got to figure out today? And I've even been noticing that subtle sort of trap of unconsciousness, that's a habit. It's a habit. There's nothing more to it than that, actually, that it's not, I'm in whatever tax bracket I fall in, which is not a big one. I'm one of the most like wealthy and safe people in the entire world. There are billions of people living in pain and poverty, and I wake up a little grumpy every day. It is this is then like the honeycomb matrix and where we place our attention, and then what is the next choice from presence? From presence, realizing that whatever is arising from the past is not any more real than anything else. It happened for reasons, but it's not fixed. It's not like it can't change. And
it's less real. It's less real.
It's less real. So then what choice am I going to make about the next moments? And then being like, how do I practice being different? Like, how do I practice shifting these background frequencies so that I can feel more of that bliss and like the world opening and expanding that I felt when the sort of limiter came off. And I was just like, this world is fucking wild and it's amazing. And there are non-human beings and we talk to them and I'm somebody who's talked to them. And I have these guides. It's so weird. You know, it's like weird in the best way. And just that open, joyful possibility, you know, how to make choices that create that future for the benefit, you know, always for the benefit of beings, like always, like how do I take this incredible privilege and not out of a sense of like sacrifice or something. Like I have to, now I need to do this to, justify this in my life. But like, this is possible on this planet. Evolution through joy is possible. We can actually create a garden planet. And to your point about like the split and living in different realities, then people kind of getting used to that. And the more people that do that and are able to do that, the more we will create a garden planet, collectively.
Word. Can I ask? Um, what do you think that waking up grumpy, is it protecting you from something? Like this waking up grumpy, when did it start?
I don't know when it started. I feel like it's a quality of my personality since I came into to this world that things are a little serious and the stakes are pretty high
Hmm.
and that there's work to be done, you know. And I think that whatever that has snowballed into in terms of like my mission and service and what I'm doing here, which has sometimes felt very like very well and have seen me feel very there's a lot of suffering that can come with that, especially when I don't know what to do and I'm just like I got to do the thing and I'm not sure what the thing is. And so I think it's a flavor of that, of whatever that snowballed into, and then being really really tired, like just really under resourced and exhausted at some deep level. And I love the dream world so much, and I really learned recently about myself during an out of body experience that I really prefer, part of me really prefers to be out of body. I had in the last couple of weeks an out of body experience and the bliss of getting out of body. And as soon as I was out of body, I said up, 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 up. And I just went, as far away from this reality as I could get. And it was a whole incredible experience. But um, I'm tired and I like being in the other worlds. And I find this realm challenging and dense and heavy and hard. But what I'm realizing is it's probably like, I wonder if you would have prescribed this for me, like as a Chinese medicine doctor. I'm doing a lot of stabilizing things. I'm like eating breakfast at the same time every day. I'm eating very sattvic foods. I'm meditating at the same time every day. I have a sleep schedule where I go to sleep and wake up at the same time. And that is bringing this like deep grounding peace and safety to my body so that I'm even able to notice that I'm waking up grumpy. So I think I'm getting more resourced and rested at a deeper level than ever before. And I'm starting to see now that it's like, oh, it's giving me this foundation where I can feel joy and excitement and other things. But I think it has to do with tired. Like I get tired and I've been tired and I find it hard here, which, I think lots of people do.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And also to something we've been talking about this whole time, and also probably the whole time we've known each other, but the principles of the drama trauma triangle and nonviolent communication and bodhicitta are like, we're here to serve all beings. Um, Anything I do is for the good of all beings. You can fall into hero and victim in that.
Yeah.
you know, the overexhausted doctor who's like, stop asking me stupid questions, just fucking let me help you. It's just not like that's not the vibes. Or waking up grumpy and then being like irritated with yourself for not having adequate gratitude.
Hmm.
And and then the thing that we started with, which is there anything arising, which I think is also golden frequency, like, what's the problem? Like, is there anything happening right now? Is
Right.
there anything at all that's happening right now that's a big fucking problem that I have to fix out of in an effortful, heavy, difficult, exhausting way? I read, I don't know, my Channy Nicholas horoscope was like, somebody just switched your codes and you're going to play everything on easy for a while. And I just took it, I just received it, I was like, great. Let's do easy codes. I'm not familiar. I did not know that was a thing. And I went in, everything was really easy. Everything at work all day was really easy. Really easy. And everybody's little quirks and personality, super clear what that meant. What's my role? What's not my role? What's my response? What's not my response? Have I been asked to assist with that? Is that my role to assist with that? And I think that previously, before I had some of the teachings on nonviolent communication, like don't fix, don't rescue, don't advise without consent, don't kill another person's experience, I would do all those things as a helper. Like, you
Mhm.
need help, you're flailing around, and I'm going to frack you to death until you feel better. And for very good reason. Like, I didn't know. I thought that was helpful. And so I was trying to be helpful. And that's a signature in my energetics, and there are more useful and less useful ways to be helpful. And one of the things that I'm on guard with is not self-oppressing, and not doing anything that's to help someone else that's bad for me. Like, it has to be a win-win. If it's at my expense, then I become the resentful victim of my own unasked for over assisting, which can create, it's such a pattern. And even in the subtlest levels, like waking up a little grumpy because we feel the weight of all the suffering beings, and like, where do we start every morning? That does feel like, of course, you'd feel overwhelmed by that. And like you were in a dream and in the astral, and all the wonders of that and all the beings of that. And then this very dense reality here where we can stub a toe or have a stomach ache or just something smells weird, or, there's so many rough things about this reality, heavy things, and it's denser. Like in a dream, things just turn into something else just like that. You can be like, oh, nope, you're a dog, and then it changes into a dog, and or you think of Paris and you're in Paris. Like, that's so much easier than buying a ticket and driving to O'Hare and getting on a thing, going to the place. Like, it's such a slow, heavy. But as you said with the Carpenter song that came into your consciousness, and it just transformed the environment that you were in to a completely different arising. Is it as heavy and dense as we think?
Right. It's only after years of committing to myself and all of my younger selves to not abandon myself and to not bypass my legitimate pain that I am now coming into a place where it's like, I am so committed to that and have been so committed to that that now I can notice, oh, this thing is actually just a habit. I can be compassionate and be like, I need actually to get more rest. I need to make sure that this tiredness gets addressed, but I don't need to. I have the capacity now to see to be able to look at something lovingly without bypassing, without subtly shaming myself for having this habit of grumpiness in the morning and just be like, oh, what's that about? Like, is that based on something or is that a habitual unconscious pattern?
Mm.
And then because of all the, like we've talked about, like all of the bodies being in close enough resonance, well, now we're in the present moment and now I can make a choice. And like my body has to learn how to practice not being grumpy and like there's a beingness shift. Can I put a smile on my face when I walk in a room? Can I have a little bit more of an open, kind of uplifted way of being? Can I notice the beauty of the world instead of kind of having my head down and, being committed or engaged or enmeshed with this habit? Can I start to make some different choices and be different? And then that creates a new future. And it's not easy. Like, it's like even that very subtle, not a big deal, not a problem, golden frequency moment when there is no problem. I have not yet come into this reality as if it is a dream, other than some state experiences where that's definitely happened, where I'm like, oh my God, this is a lucid dream. Everything, it's like, it's no more real than a dream. And maybe I can change things that quickly, but that's not my experience. And so I can't just be like, oh, I'm not in this way of being anymore. I have to practice it.
I mean, I just think that it also sounds like there is someone who's grumpy who has arrived,
Hmm.
even if it's a subtle, like a flavor of something. And I feel like if I said to you, I wake up grumpy every morning, you'd be like, I get that. That makes sense.
Right, right.
There would be such loving acceptance of it. There would be so much room for it and space for it.
Hmm.
And we want to practice something if we start to realize, like, oh, that's just an affliction. I don't need it. Like, I don't need. But is there anybody who showed up grumpy? And that's something I think that you and I are both looking at all the time too, because is there anyone who needs to be reassured that this morning we're just breathing
Hmm.
pine air, we're just looking at light playing on the ceiling or the floor or the wall or whatever. Or for this first hour, we're just drinking coffee and staring into space. Even with our afflictions, that they're not for no reason, they're not
Yeah.
for no reason. And that we want to, like, yeah, I don't want to go around with the storm cloud over me, which I can and which I have for years at a time.
Hmm.
And I was perfectly justified in doing so. I had reasons for doing so. But do I need to be loyal to my unhappiness? Can I allow for something else to arise? And I love practicing. We have those experiences like with the Carpenter song, and you think, how do I stabilize that? Because that seemed to shift something, and that might be available to me all the time. And I want that. I want to build toward it and I want to create it without, which you're definitely not doing, but without going to like a good vibes only kind of mood policing or like such
Right.
a subtle thing. It's such a subtle thing to ask of ourselves, is this truly the only valid response to this moment? Is there anything else available?
Yeah, it's the that ability again cultivated over so many years to not ever bypass. And that's what we're all practicing, I think. Like, can we meet the moment with whatever's arising? And so it's like, yeah, I think that I have a responsibility now to, if I notice the grumpiness and I notice that it's from tiredness, I need to get more rest.
Yeah.
I owe it to that part who's feeling that, to the person who wakes up, the part of me that wakes up grumpy. Like, I need to get more rest and I need to help support that. And also, then, just with everything we've been talking about, like, as soon as whoever arrives into the room and becomes like nourished and resourced and brought into presence and brought into wholeness, then the next moment can be a new choice.
Yeah.
And that's like a powerful edge that for so many years, I don't think I've been able to get as close to, because I have felt like it's been bypassing or abandoning or like pushing aside some part of myself that's really valid, and all of that remains, all of that, like it's again going back to the vision I had of the goddess. She's like, I sit on the throne of suffering. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not trying to get away from anything that's calling. And also, like, this is that move, I think, to evolution through joy. Like, there is, once it's all acknowledged and brought into the lap, then there is an opportunity to make another choice. And that new choice plants seeds for a new future, where that part of myself doesn't have to carry the load of whatever it thinks it's having to carry. Like you said,
Oh,
by making
yeah.
those choices, by being like, we're just gonna be in this nice, beautiful room together this morning, and you don't have to do anything. It's like you can rest. Yeah.
And if it's just that tiny moment, like I think that we're not always aware, and it's remarkable to witness in ourselves that it can be the briefest moment, actually, if it's met. I think that we're like, oh my God, if I let the grumpiness in, I'm going to fall into a trough of despond for the next 50 years. If I let that come in. And actually, it might be a moment like, oh, should we get another hour of sleep? Would you like a little something? Is there something, do you have an unmet need? Has an unmet need arrived?
Mhm.
And that as painful, sometimes like searingly painful, those they have a limit. They don't last forever. And when they're fully, fully welcomed in without any attempt to shut them up or put them off or limit them, they they are self-limiting. They start and they stay and they end, when we've just allowed for it.
Right. It's the deepening of the like turn towards it teaching again and again. Like, can we just, instead of even having a subtle resistance,
Mm-hmm.
the, like you said, the fully welcomed experience that we are so afraid often to feel whatever it is we're afraid to feel, because we think it's going to last forever, because it's going to hijack the day, or because there's shame around it, or people are going to think this about me if I act like this, or anything, and then finding that with that turning towards and welcoming in, yeah, it can move through in a moment, which is, I think at the beginning, I was talking about like the visceral body sensations that have been happening. Like as I welcome things in, it's a somatic release of some kind, that's often uncomfortable, but it lasts about, 10 seconds. And it's just, and then recognizing it, that's what's happening. But I don't know, Carrie, we could talk for 400,000 years. We should probably draw it to a close.
We have been.
What is your like mic drop? You have, no pressure, but what's your takeaway? What's your sum upance of all of this?
I don't have a sum up ins, but the last thing you said just made me think about getting some teachings that we got a few weeks ago. A teacher said, even sadness only lasts about 30 seconds. And it was a man who said that. And I was like, oh, you don't know anything about women. That's what went through my head when he said that. I was like, 6 seconds. And so in our next meditation session, something came up. I can't remember what came up first. It was anger. I think it was anger came up. And I turned toward it completely, which I would have thought I was already doing, but it was so subtle. I turned toward it completely and I was like, let's see what you got. I want to see how long you last. You have the floor. And it was something like 5 seconds. And it went. And I was like, amazed, stupefied, gobsmacked that it can pass. And just for the millionth time, if anyone who's listening to this and hearing like, please rush through your emotions because we're not here to feel our feelings, like not what I'm saying at all. In my experience of something coming up, it's fine, it's valid, it's allowed, it's welcome, it's great, but it's from the past. And it might be skewing the moment that I'm in right now in a way that causes suffering and is not needed. But by checking with it completely and I gave it the floor in order to prove a man wrong. You know, I was like, take all the time you want. And it was sort of assuming it's going to be a decade,
Yeah.
and it was 5 seconds. Just the wonder of it, the wonder of these things that have to bubble up in us. I'm never going to prescribe to somebody else. Try to see if you can get your emotions going faster. Try to see if you, I've never asked anyone to be less grumpy. I've never asked anyone to have a better attitude. Maybe my husband one time, but when we witness these things as like, I am suffering and I am offended and I am afflicted and I am grumpy about I don't like anything in my environment. I'd like to be able to have some facility with working on that because in the next moment for me, not prescriptive to anyone else, I can be an an actually genuinely peaceful, happy, beautiful. And I live in Wisconsin, as you know, and we've been having a crazy, insane year of tornadoes and thunderstorms. Like we've had more already this year than we usually have in 5 years put together.
Mm.
And so last night the trees were like moving around in a circle and rain was pouring down in sheets. There were huge cracks of thunder and lightning. And this morning it's like a robin hopping across the lawn. It's 70 degrees, a blue sky, and all the bees are buzzing around the lavender. Like it's just that like there was a storm and now there's a clear and it can all live. None of it is a problem and it's beautiful. I mean, it's the garden is more beautiful for the storm, not to be ridiculously cliched, but the non-bypassing, but the welcoming and the allowing, creates this ability to just be happier. I'm just happier
Yeah.
than I used to be. And that's what I want. And it has to do with having some real refuge and safety in certain relationships where I can come to rest and be received in the most generous way. And then being able to sort of suit up and go back out there and be able to offer and hold compassion. And also my biggest affliction at work is watching people create suffering for themselves and refusing to let go of it and having even compassion for that.
Mm-hmm.
Even having compassion for myself, feeling frustrated with people there's layers and layers and layers of like, what part of that can I accept today completely?
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you. I feel really nourished. It's again and again and again in all different ways. There's just the message and the lived experience over and over again that, I mean, it is so cliche, but it really is about love. It's about, a warmth of welcome and friendliness and love being brought in, for ourselves, like for each moment, for each arising, I could go on a whole thing, but I don't know if you remember Matt Kahn, was like big when I was going through the dark days, and he would say, "Love whatever arises, love whatever arises." Whatever, no, he would say, "Whatever arises, love that," I think was his phrase. And I remember being, bypassing the shit out of things, doing my best to love whatever arises. And now I'm starting to get it, right? That it's like, love even the pain, love the grumpiness, love the frustration, love, the person who's frustrating us, love like that really that spacious, like this is, the teaching in the women's group that I do, this idea of the lap is endless. Like there's an endless lap. There's nothing that falls outside of it. There's nothing you could ever do wrong. There's nothing that, like, there's literally nothing. And I feel very lucky that I have pretty deep access to that, and it's growing bigger, but I have a lot of it for other people that there's nothing that you can do to fall outside the lap. I may need to distance mine. I may need to be like, I can't hang out close to you because I've promised my younger selves that I won't abandon them or that I won't put them in dangerous situations. But I get it. Like I understand that the reason that you're acting that way is because of, you know, your own reasons, your own past. And so that's what I'm feeling and hearing over and over again too, is that practice. And that's what I tell my students. It's like, if this isn't bringing us into more love, compassion, wisdom, repeat, presence, then we're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong if that's not where we're ending up. So, all right.
I'm gonna die if I don't say one more
Please
thing.
say
Literally
everything.
die.
Don't die.
The way that you got pissed off at some, cliche earlier in the podcast that you shared, I got really mad at a tea bag one time that said love yourself. I was like, that's and advanced. That's advanced. It's an
Yeah,
advanced skill to love everything that arises. It's
it is.
advanced.
Yeah.
And so what I would say to someone who feels maybe afflicted by that or who needs like a lower step on the ladder to reach for is when you walk into the bathroom and there's like a woman in there crying and she's like sorry sorry and she tries to like you're not like you stupid bitch what the fuck you're like hey are you okay do you need a drink of water do you need a tissue do you want me to call somebody do we have to find a secret way out of here are you all right? Just like if not love everything that arises, treat it like a stranger in the bathroom. Like, can we just a little bit of friendliness? Can we receive whatever is arising with a little bit of the friendliness we'd show to a woman in the bathroom?
Yeah.
And that for me was a more accessible, like first step.
Right. It's all enormous capacity. have different capacity at different times to love what's arising.
Yeah.
And there's even love for that, but it's been years of trying every other fucking door and falling down on every floor. Like I've tried all the other ways and we all have, and so at some point it's like, I don't know, I'll give this a try. But yeah, it's definitely capacity that's built and lived experience that's built that it actually works, not just like pretending or, and then shaming ourselves for when we're not getting it right. It's always that trap. It's kind of the same thing we've been talking about the whole time. So yeah.
Is there anything here I can love? Is there anybody in the room I can love? Is there anything?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it goes deep, it spirals out.
Yeah.
It goes in. Yeah.
And if we can't find it in ourselves, that's where the guides come in. That's where the unseen team comes in. That's where nature comes in. That's where the cat comes in, or the dog, or a best friend, or somebody who will sit with us and see us, like look at us with eyes of love until we can remember it for ourselves. Like we don't have to do it. Like, what do I say? Nobody's coming to do this for us, but we don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And so that's an act of love too. Like I'm afflicted, I'm ashamed, I feel like a piece of shit. I'm going to call Carrie because she's going to sit with me until I remember that that's not actually who I am, and that it's actually okay that I'm feeling all of those ways. And, you and I have done that for each other 1,000 times in 1,000 lifetimes. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much to Carrie Murphy for this exploration and conversation. Find her info in the show notes. And stay tuned for some pretty exciting changes coming up for Earth, a Love Story. Big happenings happening, folks. And if you'd like to learn more, get information about upcoming teachings and courses, or work one-on-one with me, please visit robinlassiter.com.